Okay, here is a second one. It says write the equation of the parabola that has a vertex of 3, 4 and a directrix of 9. See if you can use the ideas and the formulas in your flip book to figure out how to write this formula. I will give you a hint to decide which formula to use, the y squared or the x squared one. You need to look at this right here. Your directrix is x equals. So think about how the directrix is going to help you find p, how this helps you with your h and your k's, and see what you can come up with. Alright, the first thing I did was I figured out that it was the y squared equation, because in the y squared my directrix is x equals, and in the x squared one your directrix is y equals, so it had to be the y squared one. Then I started jotting down here in the purple everything I knew. Well, my vertex tells me my h and my k. And according to my flip book, my directrix is x equals h minus p. So I knew that my h and my k were 3 and 4. What I had to do was figure out what the p was. So I took the fact that x was equal to 9, I plugged that into here, and then I knew that h was 3 for my vertex, so I plugged that in here. And then I had a nice simple algebra equation that I could solve. 9 equals 3 minus p. Went through that and I found that p was negative 6. Then I could go back to my equation over here and plug in the things I knew. Now my k is 4, but remember we have to do the opposite, so it's y minus 4. That quantity squared equals 4 times p, so I had 4 and I put in my negative 6. And then the h was 3, but I need the opposite, so it's x minus 3. Simplify that out, and I've got my equation for my parabola. Okay, another thing we're going to have to do is we are going to have to graph this, and we're going to do that by identifying all the key features, and then just like we have done, and then the final step would be do a table of values and plot your points. So I've brought back this equation we did earlier, the x squared equals 15 times the quantity y plus 10. And I'm just going to pull our key features from before. Alright, so I've got all that important information that we figured out before, and then I went ahead and I plotted that over on a graph to get myself started. I plotted those all in blue. Now the last thing I need to do is do a table of values. I need to do an XY chart. Well, I know that this graph is going to open up because it's the x squared one, and that's the picture that goes with my x squared tab. So I want to pick numbers to the right and to the left. So I'm going to go ahead and pick 1 and 2, and I'm going to pick negative 1 and negative 2. I am going to plug those back in to my equation for my x value, and I'm going to solve it out for y. Now when you do this, you're going to have to do a little more algebra than normal because our x value is isolated, but it's still going to turn out alright. So when I plug the 1 in here, 1 squared is still just 1, and that's going to be equal to 15 times y plus 10. Now the next thing I have to get rid of is this 15. So I have to divide both sides by 15. So I have 1 over 15 is equal to y plus 10, and then I have to subtract both sides by 10. Well, 1/15 minus 10 is negative 9 and 14/15. So that's going to be my y coordinate that matches up with my x. Then I would do the same thing for 2. Well, 2 squared gives me 4, so 4 is equal to 15 times y plus 10. Divide by 15, and then subtract off 10. Well, 4/15 minus 10 is going to give me a value of negative 9 and 11/15. Then I go on to negative 1. Now keep in mind, negative 1 squared is positive 1. So when I go through that math, I'm going to end up with a negative 9 and 14/15 again. And then negative 2 squared again gives me that positive 4. So I'm going to end up with negative 9 and 11/15. When I go over here and I plot those, I go over 1 and down to 9 and 14/15. So that's right about there and right about here. When I go over to 2, it doesn't change much. So since this one isn't really changing much when we do 1 and 2, you might want to jump to a bigger value. Maybe you want to come over here and do 6. So when we put that 6 squared in there, we get 36 is equal to 15 times y plus 10, and take that 36 divided by 15, and we end up getting, I'm going to go ahead and go with a decimal, 2.4 is equal to y plus 10. Then subtract off that 10, and we get y is equal to negative 7.6. So when we go over here to 6, our y value would be negative 7.6. So that'd be down here somewhere. I can do the symmetrical one this way. And that gives me a little better idea of where my parabola goes. So then I can go ahead and sketch in my parabola for my graph. Now if our graph had been sideways, we would do the exact same thing. We would start by finding our important points, plot those points, and then we would complete it by doing a table of values.